Well, hello and welcome, members of the Chinese Medicine Practitioner Meetup Group, hosted by Kamwo. My name is Thomas Leon. I'm the organizer and your host for this afternoon, or morning or evening, depending on where you're logging in from. And I want to take a moment to welcome new members to our group. I hope you enjoy what we have for you today and hopefully many more events in the future. The mission of our meetup group is to connect members with respected authorities on subject matters within our profession. The events are always free and our speaker suggestions come from you, the members. So if you have suggestions for your speakers, send them to us. This is our 142nd event. For those who are big fans of live events, in-person events, it will be resumed very soon. As a matter of fact, Nigel Dawes is doing one soon in July, and that'll be a live event. But we will also live stream those events because the online platform always reach it can reach cross borders, other side of the world. So tonight's talk is approximately 1.5 hours. So it will end approximately 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So here are the ground rules. Please mute your microphones if you have not done so. And just hold off questions until our guest speakers give us the cue to do so. And of course, there's going to be a Q&A session toward the end. But if something urgent and relevant, please type in your comments box, type your comments in the chat box and raise your hand. And I, as your host, will address this. And this way, the lecture does not get interrupted. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, whose reputation in the profession precedes her. Dr. Shelley Goldstein is widely considered one of the worldwide experts on cosmetic facial acupuncture. She's the author of Your Best Face Now, Look Younger in 20 Days with the Do-It-Yourself Acupressure Facelift, and also the creator of Touch and Glow, the Do-It-Yourself Acupressure Facelift Kit. As a leading authority and educator of cosmetic facial acupuncture, Dr. Goldstein founded the Academy of Advanced Cosmetic Facial Acupuncture, which has recently partnered with Pacific College of Health Sciences to present the Facial Application of Cosmetic Enhancement Training Program, also known as the FACE program, for short, the acronym. Dr. Goldstein has been featured on major television and cable networks and in the press. She is also a columnist for the Acupuncture Today News. So without further ado, I will turn it over to our esteemed speaker, Shelley Goldstein.
Hey, thanks,
welcome.
Tom. Thanks, Tom. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. And I love Kamwo. Thank you for everything that you've given to our community. You're really a hallmark for our profession, and we really appreciate you. So anyway, so I am going to share my screen. Let's see, and get going here. And okay, and all right, here we go. Everybody see that? Thumbs up. Yeah, great. Okay. So today we are going to talk about my favorite topic as well, Arena. It's Mei Rong Beauty, and it's about enhancing appearance with acupuncture techniques. And then also we can use acupressure, we can use a number of different things, but today we're going to specifically target Chinese medicine and acupuncture. So Mei Rong, I don't know if all of you know this word. It means beautiful appearance. It is a holistic regime practiced throughout Asia for many, many, many centuries. It was designed to promote systemic health and well-being and delay the visible signs of aging. It was a combination, or still is, a combination of acupuncture, acupressure, and herbs. The herbs are either topical, applied to the surface of the skin, or ingested for systemic enhancement. And initially, as we know it, it was used by the emperors to keep their concubines looking beautiful and healthy, and by the empresses to maintain a beautiful, radiant appearance. And for those of us who know about Chinese medicine and Asian practice, beauty is extremely important and valued and well preserved. I would say the women and the men in Asian cultures are gorgeous. They age gracefully and beautifully, and so we all want to be like them. There are, and also in keeping with the kind of the feeling or the gestalt of Mei Rong Beauty, there were also many variations of it, many variations throughout many households. So not only was it just used by the elite, but it was used by everyone alike. Again, being that beauty, Mei Rong, beautiful appearance, was such an important part of their culture. Today's modern application of ancient Mei Rong, it's typically performed as an alternative or an adjunct to facial neurotoxins, volumizers, and other enhancing appearances or services. I call it a healthier, tighter, brighter, natural look and feel. And that is in fact what it is. And you can see in these before and after pictures, these are my images, and you can see this one is a before, this is an after, this is a before, the more yellowish color one, and then the next one is an after, and then this is me. This one, my profile, you can see before I started doing facial acupuncture on myself, I had some loss of definition in the jawline, and it just got better. This is after 5 treatments, and this is the one on the bottom is after 10. So again, it's not, you can see from the image, it's not a facelift. It's not huge apple cheeks and big lips and flat foreheads. It really is a healthy, tighter, brighter, natural look and feel. And that's what we want. That's really what people are going for these days, instead of a very, very tight facelift or tightened appearance. As part of this facial aging and Mei Rong, we know that aging is inevitable. It is part of the intrinsic and extrinsic mosaic of aging. We can't stop it, but with acupuncture, we can certainly delay those signs of aging and alter those that have occurred. We say that a single treatment can yield short-term benefits, notably lasting for days, maybe a week or two. And this is why we offer these services in a series of treatment, average 10 to 12 treatments, 1 time a week. And in this case, once we've obtained the image or the effects that we're looking for, they will last for weeks, maybe even months. And we encourage people to come back for maintenance treatment. Maintenance is every 4 to 6 weeks. And then we say that with maintenance, you can maintain that delayed aging appearance for years. I say it's like taking your face to the gym. And this is what I tell my patients. You work with your face, you work with the body, you look stronger, you feel stronger and healthier, and you age better, more gracefully, more appropriately, and more radiantly. What's nice about specializing in a field such as facial cosmetic acupuncture is most of our patients come in with a certain subset of concerns. And these concerns might be wrinkling or creasing across the forehead, eyelid ptosis is that drooping of the lid, swelling or darkness under the eyes, or wrinkling or creasing between the brows and around the eyes. In the midface, the cheek area, wrinkling, cheek sagging, nasolabial fold, that's that fold between the side of the nose and the corner of the mouth. Around the mouth and the jawline area, people usually come in complaining with wrinkling or creasing around the mouth. Marionette lines are the lines that run from the corner of the mouth to the jaw area. And the mental crease is the little crease that comes underneath the chin. And then loss of definition along the jaw area, skin sagging in the neck. Platysma is a big band of muscle that goes from the clavicle all the way to the corner of the mouth, scoops up, attaches to the muscles of the face. Banding or little, this is a platysma man. Here's a really good one. These are those bands that occur on the neck area. And then many people will come for dermatology conditions such as acne, rosacea, hyperdyschromia, or sunspots. What we know from our acupuncture experience is that visibly we can see a softening of deep wrinkles. We can see eliminating of small fine lines. We can tone skin that looks lax or droopy. We can improve or adjust muscle tone. So muscles that are too tight, we can relax. Muscles that are too flaccid, we can lift and tone. And then we can also help to the changes that occur with muscles over time, which you'll see in a few minutes. We also know that facial acupuncture, cosmetic facial acupuncture, corrects and heals skin problems. It evens skin texture, improves color, and it makes it a nice lustrous glow. Additionally, it can enhance not only just appearance and vitality, but systemically as well. Because internally, what's happening? Not only are we improving the integrity of muscle or thickening of thinning atrophic tissue, but we're also improving the physical, the mental, and emotional well-being. Because as acupuncturists, we know it's all connected. Our body, our mind, and our psyche are all one. And then on a physical level, we can adjust channels, organs, and other systemic imbalances. What's very interesting about this is the first landmark study on facial acupuncture was in 1996, published in 2018 in the International Journal of Clinical Acupuncture. And in this study, it was called Meridial Cosmetology, Report of 300 Cases with Discussion of Underlying Mechanisms. It was the first landmark study of facial acupuncture, in which case 300 cases were treated in China with facial acupuncture, and noted that of those 300, 90% had a marked effect with one course of 10 weekly treatments. Those benefits that they're talking about were demonstrated in improvements in skin texture, skin color, skin elasticity, tissue elasticity, wrinkle reduction, and overall rejuvenation. And then the patients who were treated said not only were those results confined to the face, but they always felt changes within too, because we know that when we are treating with facial acupuncture, like our Chinese medicine, we're always adjusting the entire body and organ system as well as the face. Why? Because we know this. We know from our Chinese medicine perspective that we need to not just put needles in the face, but we need to use a whole systems approach towards aging and diminishing the signs and symptoms of facial aging. And that in order to do that, we need to really support the foundation of the person. We're not just treating the face, but we're treating the root cause, which is our systemic system, our foundation, even when wrinkles and other facial concerns are our chief complaint. Why? Because according to traditional Eastern Asian medicine, we say that the condition of one's face and the skin is directly related to internal health and well-being. And that is so true. If our body is not balanced, if our body is not healthy, it shows on the face. It's the inside-outside approach, so that the skin or our face is really a representation of what's happening or what's going on inside. When we are treating with facial acupuncture or cosmetic facial acupuncture, we are addressing the channel theory. In addition to the channel theory, we're utilizing the energetic meridian pathways and their corresponding organ systems, because we know that as the meridians pass through different organs, not only do they assume their name, but they also assume the attributes of those organ systems. And in doing so, by treating the channels, by treating through the organ systems through the channels, what we are doing is we are correcting internal systems and problems such as digestion, circulation, reproduction, neuromuscular disorders, respiratory disorders, anything that you've currently been treating in your practice. And in doing so, targeting that type of systemic change, we are then able to address the symptoms, what shows up on the surface of the skin. So that facial concerns, wrinkles, sagging skin, muscle tone, skin dyschromia are really just symptoms of an underlying pattern of disharmony. Not to say that there are specific changes that occur morphologically, but again, our first step is to treat the underlying pattern disharmony, and then treat the face as an adjunct to that. And this is what separates us from, say, estheticians or others that apply topicals or just do face treatments on the surface. What we're doing is a much deeper treatment, in which case the results are much longer lasting. So treat the root pattern of the disharmony with body points, and then treat the branch or the face with other face points, say acupoints, motor points, ashi points, and other points. And this is it seems simple, but in fact, it's not at all. And so, there are many, many courses that you can take. We'll talk about some later that help you to come up with specific point protocols based on conditions that really help to solidify and give you excellent results. In addition to the Chinese medicine component of this, I firmly believe that the effective treatment results not reside in the understanding and the relationship between our team medicine and biomedical anatomy with regard to the morphological and psychodynamic facial changes over time. So it's important, what I'm saying is we take our Chinese medicine, we take our understanding of Western anatomy, changes that occur on a morphological basis as we age, combine them, and then bam, you've got a really good treatment. It's like any type of treatment or a specialty that you have. If you are in orthopedics, you certainly need to know the body, you certainly need to know the bones of the body, and then you apply your Chinese medicine. Same with the face. We learn all of the anatomical structures of the face, how they change, how they work, and how that interfaces with Chinese medicine in order to get excellent results. So let's just quickly go through those morphological changes. Many of us understand Chinese medicine, but not everyone really understands the anatomy of the face. So the anatomy of the face, starting in the skeletal tissue, the deepest layer is bone. On top of bone is muscle. On top of muscle is fat, and then skin. And they're all connected by connective tissue or fascia and retaining ligaments, which we're going to talk about. But first, what I'd like to explain is that when we're looking at the face, we're looking at, yes, all the changes that occur, wrinkles, sagging skin, that type of thing, but we have to look at them in different planes. So we're looking at the upper face, which includes the hairline to the inner canthus plane, which is right at the center of the eyebrow area. That's considered the upper face. The mid face is from that intercanthus plane to the subnasal, which is right at the border of the nose. And then the lower face is the subnasal to the menton, and the menton is at the, we're going to call it, it's really about here, but we're going to take it to the jawline. And then on a vertical plane, we have a central plane, which is the center line. We have the second vertical plane is from the center of the pupil into that vertical center line. And then we have the third plane, which is the lower earlobe to the lower earlobe. So the center of the pupil to the earlobe. And we have that on both sides. And then what we see, or what that landscape of change over the aging face, what happens is when we're young and healthy and lifted, the weight of our face is here. It's in the upper quadrant, the upper aspect of the mid face, and it's more out to the side, so at the cheekbone area. Open forehead, nice and lifted, the whole movement of the face is up and out. As we age, what happens is everything starts to move medially and down. So we see the medial aspect of the face start to get heavier, as opposed to, say, that triangle where the upper face is more, the weight is up at the upper triangle of the face. And then as we get older, everything moves in and sinks down lower. And so our patients will come to us and they'll say, I look old, I feel old. And really, this is what they're referring to, is the weight of the face dropping from that upper aspect of the face to the bottom. So the triangle switches. So you can see the triangle of face, the weight of the face in a younger face is here, whereas as an aging face, that weight or the base of that triangle is at the jaw. line area. And this is supported by, say, this image where you see a younger face, both front and profile and side. You can see nice tight jaw area. Cheekbones are nice and high and lifted. Forehead is nice and wide and open and flat. And the neck area is tight. Whereas, say, in an aged, more aged face, you can start to see the forehead starts to shrink. You start to see creasing across the forehead area. The weight of the face moves from this upper aspect, you can see this, down towards the medial aspect. So you get a change in the architecture of the face with the weight being below as opposed to, say, upper. And why? Different systems change. Everything changes. Even your bones. The bones of the skull are made up of 22 bones. They're subdivided into cranial bones and fascial bones. Not necessary for this lecture, but just to know that there are a number of interconnected bones connected by sutures and hinges on the skull. And then as we age, what happens? They all change. It's called skeletal resorption and remodeling. This is a CT scan of a face of a female between the age of 20 to 40, and then the skull of a woman over 65 to the right. And there's a visible and marked change. What happens when skeleton or the skeletal system starts to break down? One thing that happens is the entire height of the face starts to shrink. You can see that here. The eye sockets get bigger. Why? Because the bone is breaking down from the inside out, the weak areas out. The temporal hollowing right here, the temple area starts to pit and hollow. The nasal piriform aperture right here starts to widen. You can see the changes along here. And then the mandible, this is the mandible, the hinging jaw area. You can start to see this starting to break down, as well as the maxilla area up in here. And when that occurs, everything starts to compress, break down. It causes the teeth to push forward and jut out. So again, and so the face goes from a nice vertical angle to a more horizontal, pinched position. And then you can see this from this skeleton right here: open eyes, open nasal piriform. We have temporal hollowing in the cheek area, and then breakdown or resorption of the mandible, maxilla area, and the pushing forward of your teeth. So imagine this is your skull. This is what's holding all of that tissue, all the fat, skin, muscles, everything together. So what's going to happen when it breaks down? Everything starts to change, everything starts to shift. Now, on top of the bone, we have muscles. We have two kinds of muscles. We have deep muscles and superficial muscles. So the deep muscles are the ones deep to the surface of the skin. They're your muscles of mastication, designed for chewing. And then you have superficial muscles. And these are the more flat, striated muscles that are very superficial to the skin. They interconnect with each other, starting either from the mouth, the muscle that runs around the mouth, the orbicularis oris, or the orbicularis oculi, the muscle that surrounds the eye. And all of these muscles connect directly or indirectly to the face, and they move in harmony to do what? To create facial expressions. They're called the muscles of expression, or mimetic muscles. They're different than the muscles of the rest of the body. The muscles of the body are designed to move bone. So if you think of the muscle of the arm, the biceps and the triceps, when you flex your bicep, what happens? The bones in your hands move forward. When you relax your bicep, what happens? The arm or the bone, the forebone, starts to drop down. So they are designed, they're attached from bone to bone, or from joint to bone. And when they contract, they're going to move bone. Well, on the face, these bones, these muscles, as you can see, they are attached to muscle, So they're attached to either bone to muscle to muscle, or muscle to skin. So what happens? Rather than moving bones or attachments, they actually move other muscles and skin. And when we make expressions, when we talk, when we smile, when we laugh, when we frown, when we cry, what's happening? All the muscles are changing in order to make those expressions on our face. So hence they're called the muscles of expression. And you can see them, they're nice and flat. This is a cadaver, and I oftentimes will use cadaver images in my PowerPoint presentation. And just to know that I want to give a little bit of respect to people who have donated their body to science so that we can learn and grow from their bodies. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for those people that donate their bodies to science. In this image, this is that orbicularis oculi, the muscle around the eyes, and you can see this is the skin has been reflected or pulled off, so you can see the muscles. This is the muscle of the forehead. This is the muscle of around the mouth. This is the zygomatic muscle. So you can see they're just nice, flat, striated muscles. This is the platysma muscle, that muscle that we were talking about, and they interconnect with one another. And so again, when they contract or relax, they are moving other muscles, skin, and creating basically expressions. Now with age, rather than atrophy, because we think of muscles that are that atrophy because we don't use them, right? Well, in fact, that's not the case at all. We are constantly using the mimetic muscles. So rather than atrophy, we say they attenuate. What does attenuate mean? It means basically that they dry up and get stiff. They lose their moisture. And when that happens, they reduce in amplitude. They don't move as much. They get a little stiff, they straighten, and they get locked into place. So this limited amplitude of the mimetic muscle movement expression leads to a permanent contraction and positioning, which then accentuates skin creasing, wrinkling, or facial asymmetry because we're not symmetrical. We use one side more than the other. But when you see an older person, it looks and you see not a lot of movement in their face from muscle attenuation. It's not that they aren't talking or having expressions or even having feelings. It's just that those muscles are a little drier, they're a little stiffer, they're locked into place, and they don't move as fluidly. And this is what acupuncture can do, is keep that fluid. And then we have the integumentary system. So inclusive of the integumentary system, it's the subcutaneous area. This is our fat. It's deep to the surface of the skin. More superficial in the middle is the dermal layer. And then on top, we have the epidermis. The epidermis is what you see when you look in the mirror or at someone else. The dermis is actually the true health of the cell. It's where all the nutrients are. It's where the cells grow. They start at the base of the dermal layer and they migrate and bathe in this layering of connective tissue and nutrients, move up to the surface of the skin through the epidermal layer up to the surface of the skin. They slough off and it makes room for a new growing, new healthy skin. So what we see is really the health of the dermal layer of the skin. Going back to that fat layer, we think of our face having fat in it. There's multiple layers. There's superficial and deep fat. And they are, rather than being this one sheet of fat across the face, they're compartmentalized. So then again, as muscles move, they move different areas of fat as well. As we age, that fat or adipose tissue starts to break down. We call it descend and deflate. And these changes occur all over the face. They occur across the forehead, along in between the eyebrows, the glabella area, around the eye, the periorbital, the temporal area. It starts to break down. The malar area right in here. We start to see the breakdown of fat, the deflating of fat, and the descension. And a lot of it, remembering that we said that the weight of the face moves medially. This is exactly what happens. It's a combination of descending of fat from the mid face and the upper aspects of the face towards that nasolabial fold and along the jaw area. But also just the loss of fat in the middle and primarily in the mid face, the lower 2/3 of the face. And then with inclusive in the dermis and the upper dermis, we have, here's the dermal layer, here's the epidermis layer. We can see all the nutrients that are in the dermal layer, and then we can see a lot of sweat glands in the upper area. You'll see, although not in this, a lot of anti-inflammatory proteins that protect the surface of the skin. In the dermal layer, one of the primary components that maintain the integrity of that dermal layer is the papillary layer. It's connective tissue. So the upper aspect of the dermis is this type of connective tissue. It's a loose meshwork. And in this, you can find ability for all the nutrients to float around, and a lot of temperature regulation and sensory perception proteins. And the deeper layer, the reticular layer, this is really the layer that is thicker. You can see the difference between, in this image, this is the upper layer, this is the lower layer, the reticular layer. It's much more dense and coarse and thick. So it's the cushion that provides the support for the skin, the upper aspect of the skin. And then in the epidermis, that very top, we have, as we said, Merkel cells, which provide sensation. They're oftentimes attached to sensory neurons or sensory nerves. So pressure, pain, heat, all of those things that we feel on the surface of the skin are picked up through the Merkel cells and transported through the sensory neurons to the brain. We have the keratinocytes, which are the skin repair cells. We have the laminar granules, which are the skin barrier, which protects the cell. And then we have the very top layer of skin that is the dead cells with keratin that flake off and then make room for more. So you can see everything is well strategized and layered. And we also have melanocytes, which provides your skin pigment. So what happens when we age? Well, first, that connective tissue that we talked about starts to dry up, flatten, and then we get skin pitting. So the base of the surface of the skin just starts to drop. There's no support. There's nothing to hold it together. So it starts to pit. We see the disorganization in the structure of the dermal layer, the elastin, the collagen, all of the things that are found in that connective tissue. They start to break down. We see a reduction in the vascularization in the tissue in the dermal layer. This whole area starts to atrophy, break down. It loses its plumpness. And then when it starts to dry, we start to see a separation of the epidermis and the dermis. This is when our skin gets very thin. In aging people, skin breaks easily, and so they have to be very careful about getting hurt or skin damage. And that a lot of that has to do with skin thinning and drying in the dermal and the upper layer. And then all of this area, this whole, the skin, the tissues within and the muscles within them and around them, we have connective tissue. So connective tissue, very, very important and a huge topic of conversation these days. It's what provides the structural and the mechanical support for the entire body, for the entire, from the bones all the way up to the surface of the skin. So it supplies the mechanical support, and it also mediates the exchange of nutrients and waste between the other tissues as the nutrients circulate through it. So we have the loose connective tissue on the top, we have dense connective tissue here, and we have another form of irregular connective tissue. And then we have fascia. Fascia is a form of connective tissue. It's the most abundant form of connective tissue in the body. It surrounds the bones and the vessels and the nerves and all of the organs. And it really is what the deeper fascia that surrounds and protects, provides the structure and gives the shape to the body. And then there's another type of fascia that attaches the muscles to helps to attach the muscles to the skin to give that kind of a fluid movement of exchange. This is a fascia under a microscope of 20 times, 25 times the power. And you can see it's kind of sticky and gluey. It kind of looks like saran wrap or sticky film, whatever you call it. It's kind of a sticky, like a little cob wax, and it holds everything together. It attaches and sticks everything together and helps to have everything move slowly. So you can see it needs to be moist. It needs to be fluid in order for everything to work carefully. As we age and it gets dry, it starts to lose its ability and its function. So we have the deeper fascia that supports and divides and protects the muscles and all of the other vessels. And then we have that superficial in the face, it's called the superficial musculoepineuritic system, the SMAS layer that connects those superficial muscles, the mimetic muscles, to the skin to help transmit and amplify the activity of facial expressions. Very important. And then again, the necessity for it to stay fluid, wet, in order to contract and maintain that quality of essential movement and fluidity for healthy tissues. Now, what's interesting is that we're just starting to discover this in terms of Chinese medicine and how Chinese medicine, we've talked about qi sensation. You place the needle into the tissue and you get that sensation or that spreading of da qi. Well, guess what? We're finally starting to figure out in Western medicine is it may have something to do with connective tissue. It may have something to do with fascia. So such that when the needle inserts through the surface of the skin, whether it goes for the superficial adipose area into the superficial fascia or deeper into the deep fascia, however we insert the needle, in the depth in which we insert the needle accentuates that spreading of da qi throughout the body. And we have discovered this from body scan data demonstrating that the fascia network resembles the meridian system theory and the physical substrate represented by the meridians of TCM. So in fact, what we are saying is that we used to call it the meridian system, those pathways that run through the body, and you put the needle in, stimulate, or with your finger stimulate the meridian and get that da qi. But now what we're starting to think is that possibly what we're seeing is it's the meridian, but it's also the fascia in and around those meridians that have what we call a piezo electrical effect that create that electrical spreading, the da qi that spreads through the body. And so this is in many ways why fascia-related acupuncture is effective for treating fascia-related disorders, because you put the needle in, the effect of the treatment or the needling isn't just at that one spot, but the capacity of that needle in one spot to then spread out and migrate into surrounding and more distal areas as well. Fascinating. So what's interesting about this is that we've been talking about this for a very long time in terms of needling technique, and I'm going to apply this to the aging face. So we know that in the Ling Shu, the classic text for Chinese needling technique, that throughout this text, there have been numerous discussions about needling guidelines specific to the layers of the skin, the flesh, the area between the flesh, the channels around the muscles, and at the level of the bone. In chapter 1 of the Ling Shu, it talks about the skin, the flesh, the muscles, the tendons, and the meridians occupy different places in the body, and that different diseases respond to different methods of treatment. And in chapter 7, it says, if illness is superficial and needling is deep, it will penetrate and injure the good flesh. If illness is deep and needling is superficial, results will not be obtained. So we've been talking about this. We've heard about this for a long time. With regard to the depth and the angle of insertion for the channel points for facial acupuncture, we need to take that into consideration so that when we are needling into the skin and the epidermis to affect the epidermal and dermal layer, we need to angle that needle at a 5 to 15 degrees. If we're needling into the fat or the adipose or the hypodermis, we need to angle that needle at a 15 to 20 degree. And then if we're going, and what I'm talking about is the angle of insertion is relative to the skin surface. Muscles, we're going to angle at a 45 to 60 degree angle. And if we're going to go right into the bone, then we'll angle straight down at a 90 degree angle. So we would use, say, bone needling for prevention or preservation of, say, bone loss, and preventing the skeleton from remodeling, or injury for, say, TMJ, TMD, or any other type of bone-related disorder. We also needle in that 90 degree angle if we want to go into a TCM meridian treatment. So you're needling at the deepest level to address the organ system. So we're going to needle at that 90 degree angle. And we know from the research that our acupuncture targets osteoblast proliferation and differentiation by stimulating mesenchymal stem cell precursors. So we know that acupuncture grows bones. If we're going to needle at that muscle level, that 45 to 60 degree angle, we're going to do that for prevention, for attenuation of aging muscles, any type of fascia adhesion. Wrinkles is a form of muscles contracting, relaxing, contracting, relaxing, contracting. And so that the skin on top of it starts to bend and relax, bend and relax, bend and relax. So like a piece of paper that folds over and over and over and over, eventually you get a wrinkle. So we are going to treat wrinkles by treating some forms of wrinkles, by treating muscles, and any type of congestion in the muscles or channels, any type of muscular related disorders or damage to muscle treatment. And we know from the research that acupuncture downregulates genes involved in muscle breakdown while upregulating protein synthesis. And we know that acupuncture restores facial elasticity. In this research on facial elasticity, it was found that acupuncture affects facial elasticity by restoring mimetic muscle tone through the insertion of needles into the muscles of the head, face, and neck. And this is what we're talking about, is building elasticity, plumping that tissue, and helping to release to wrinkles as well. And then if we're going to treat the epidermal layer, needling at 5 to 15 degrees, why would we do that? Pain, believe it or not. Remember we talked about the Merkel cells at the surface of the skin that are the sensory conductors that pick up sensations like itching. If a little bug lands on your face, itching, it's going to pick it up, and the body is going to kind of scratch the face. So any type of internal itching, inflammation, you're going to needle into the epidermis and the dermis. And then acne, rosacea, dermatitis, or most skin conditions, we're going to needle very flat at that 5 to 15 degrees. So it's a little bit different type of needling, highly, highly effective. And then wrinkles that are from skin disorders, dryness, dehydration, depletion of qi and blood at the surface of the skin. And we know from the research that acupuncture is effective in eliminating trigeminal neuralgia symptoms and other forms of facial pain with a high cure rate and effective rate. And with regards to dermatology, there are so many clinical trials and case reports of patients using acupuncture for atopic dermatitis, itch, urticaria, herpes, psoriasis, acne, melasma, hyperhidrosis, wound healing, so much great data available with the benefits of acupuncture and dermatology. And then wrinkles. We know that acupuncture creates this wound healing cascade to release growth factors and stimulate the production of collagen and elastin in the dermis. And we know that from Young-Hee Yoon, that acupuncture enhances facial elasticity. And this is really interesting. They're looking at the ability for acupuncture to enhance facial elasticity by restoring mimetic muscle tone through the insertion of needles in the head, neck, and face. And so what in this study, even though it's an open label single arm pilot study, what they did is they looked at the through a Moray topography, they examined different areas. So this is your baseline. And then they took pictures with a digital camera and IX750 and at varying intervals of their treatments. And they were able to know that the contour lines were different. And this was evaluated by an independent evaluator, so there's minimal bias, but you can see the changes in the topography of wrinkling and pitting in the skin from baseline 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Huge difference between 1 and 5. It's very exciting. And then there are the needles. The needles that we use are very important. Kamwo carries all of these needles, so I think that that's you can refer to them to purchase needles. But you want to consider the material, the type, the quality, the sharpness, the sterilization method, the way that they're packaged, the cleanliness of the facilities, the needle handling, and quality control. And what's nice is you don't have to do all the work. There are certain companies that I really subscribe to, particularly with quality and sharpness. If you look at these magnified needles, you can see that there is a very big difference between needles. Look at the difference between this needle and say this needle and this needle and this needle. Huge, huge difference. They may look the same, but when you start magnifying them at 400 times and 2000 times, you can see a huge difference in the quality and sharpness of the needles. And look, this is amazing, right? This is what we call a good needle. It looks good before insertion. A bad one, you can actually see that the tip is blunt and it's curved. And this one is just, shame on the company that makes this. These are poor quality. Not only are they fragmented, but you can get bacteria in them. And when you insert them into the skin, it hurts. And so when we use facial acupuncture, we are very careful about the types of needles that we use. Serins, ace in the hole all the time. They have longer needles, shorter needles. They fulfill all the criteria that we've talked about: the stainless steel material, the sterilization, their rounding of them, and they even carry their J15 line, which is designed specifically for cosmetic facial acupuncture. Thrive is another good company for intradermal needles. Highly recommend them. They're double polished, they're Japanese, they're stainless steel. They're designed specifically for cosmetic facial acupuncture. They come in 3 different types: the gold for superficial areas, and gold, we're talking about the tips, right? Across, you can just see this is a gold tip one. This is a silver tipped one for finer skin, and then there's another one for copper. It's a little thicker and it's more for the subcutaneous fat layering. So depending upon where you're needling, you can choose those needles. And then Serin just came out with LPs, which is another form of intradermal needle, which I think is really interesting as well. Similar concept to these needles, the Thrive needles, but they're Serins. So again, it's the attention to detail, the surgical stainless steel, the triple polishing, the sterilization, the packaging. And then there are single press needles. I don't use them that often, but you can certainly use them for intradermal needling into wrinkles. Pinex intradermal needles, they are a form of a Serin needle. So again, attention to detail. And they come in all different sizes, different coloring. So these you just peel off, you press into the skin, and it stays there. And then depending upon your state, there's always the legal issue is, can you send them home with it? In New York, no, you're not allowed to send someone home with a needle. So you would use them in accordance with your state regulations. Now, it's interesting because you can use needles, but funny thing that people will come to you for facial acupuncture, but they don't really like needles in their face. So then acupressure is an equally good alternative to needles. This is my kit. It's a touch and glow kit. It's a battery operated massage apparatus that comes with, you put a battery in, you turn it on. it comes with a point prescription protocol for face. So you will do your body points, and then as an addition or alternative to needles, you can use this wand as an instrument assisted wand, or you can send your patients home with this. And what's nice about it is you can get your patients to do some of the work for you. It's a 5 to 10 minute acupressure facelift treatment. You can target one area, you can do the full face, but if you can get them to do some of this in between the sessions, the results are amazing. I ran a pilot study before I put these out into market, and I had 12 participants. They came in 3 times, day 1, 11, and 12. They took pictures and day 1 and 12. And each day that they were there, of the 20 days, day 1 through 20, they had a daily protocol that they did every single day. And they recorded the results in diary card. And then they completed a pre and post a self-assessment questionnaire. What we found was that at the end, from day 1 to 20, that the patients reported that there was improvement, 90% improvement in facial, 90% of the people noted a difference in facial tone, 80% in skin quality, 90% in wrinkle depth, 70% in eyes and eyebrow changes, 90% noted changes in their cheeks, 80% in their jawline, 90% in the neck, and self-image. That was one of the quality of life. When they looked better, they felt better. When they felt better, they felt better about themselves as well, which I think is extraordinarily important, because with our patients, you have to remember that in this country, we are not very forgiving and to the aging in terms of appearance. We kind of tend to push them off. When you look in magazines, we've gotten better, but we still target youth, beauty, health, radiance. And so as someone turns that shift of life, turns that corner, and they start to look in the mirror and see that they look different, their cheeks are starting to sag, their jawline definition is going, they're banding in their neck, creasing between their foreheads, across their forehead, between their eyebrows. If they don't have a very strong self-image that's not based on the way that they look, present themselves to the world, it makes a difference. And it can be huge crisis for some people. So if you can help them, this is again the mind-body connection in our medicine. So if you can also help someone with their self-image, then you've done an incredible job. So as a recap, the facial concerns, wrinkles, are just symptoms of an underlying pattern disharmony. It's important to treat the root first with body points, and treat the branch, or the facial symptoms, with face points. And then you put the needles in the lower extremities first, then the upper extremities, torso, head, neck, face, and then you remove them in the opposite order. So you're going to remove the neck, face, and head first, then torso, upper extremities, and lower extremities. These are some before and after pictures. This is one of my patients. This is with acupuncture, and you can see this deep glabella creasing, and then tightening in the forehead, creasing the forehead, and then after you can see a much more softer in the glabella area, and softer in the across the forehead. This is another one. You can see here's the loss of definition in the jawline. I think this was 6 treatments. You can see the loss of definition in the jaw area. You can start to see the marionette line starting to come down. You can see the deflation in the cheek area. And then after 6 weekly treatments, this is starting to come up. She wasn't finished. This was just 1 through 6. The jawline was starting to come up. You can see everything starting to lift, higher cheekbones, shortening, and the marionette lines, softening of that nasolabial fold. But you can just see the weight of the face is here before, and now the weight of the face is starting to move here, which is what we want. This is that same one. This is my jawline. I was practicing myself, and just a huge difference between the 1st, the 5th, and the 10th treatment. And this is an acupressure one. This is the touch and glow. And you can see again, a huge difference. Here's the weight of the face in the cheek area, and then a little bit red, mottled complexion, and then just huge change in her face. Huge, big difference. I actually looked at it and I thought, wow, this is not real, but it was in fact. So big change in her just in terms of the jawline changes. And this is acupressure. So again, just to know that acupressure with the touch and glow wand is what she used, the 20-day treatment can make a big difference. So just to let you know that this is kind of a limited version of what we do and what I do. I do offer with the Pacific College a facial applications for cosmetic enhancement program. It's a 8-credit college credit program. It's over 100 hours of CEUs. What's really nice about this is it's a combination of all the didactic is online, it's virtual classrooms, and then there's 8 days of hands-on training. The didactic is not just myself, but a number of leaders in the field, Matt Callison, Motor Points, Deirdre Courtney, Face Reading, Dr. Yu Ying Li, great in dermatology, Daniela Turley talks about the integration being Western medicine and biogenetics into Chinese medicine, Martha Lucas, great, well-regarded professional in the field of facial acupuncture. Dr. Carrie Hart works with me. She knows a lot about gua sha, facial cupping, and Dr. Criso Neophyte, I can never pronounce her, Neophyte Simas. She works at the college and she lectures on menopause and the effects of menopause on the aging face and how to treat that as well. So if you want more information, classes begin in January. You can email face@pacificcollege.edu. Here's the phone number. And then also this weekend at this school, I'll put the information in the chat area. On Sunday is a 1-day acupressure training program. It's a combination of didactic and clinical hands-on training. It's this Sunday in the New York City campus of the Pacific College. For more information in the chat, you can contact Cynthia Nepris, C-Nepris at pacificcollege.edu. I think there's still some spaces available, but that's available for you as well. And again, thank you to Kamwo. Thank you, Tom. Thanks everybody for coming and listening. And again, there's just so much more. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much to learn with facial acupuncture. And for me, I've been doing this for 30 years or more than 30 years. And it has been so rewarding for me, again, not just to be able to make a difference in terms of helping people age more gracefully and healthily, but also, again, helping with self-confidence, helping people to feel better about themselves. Because again, it's a big deal to not just be able to treat the face, but to actually help to treat the person, to make the person feel better about themselves as well. So.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley.
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
On behalf of the group, we just want to thank you not only for tonight, but just overall your contribution to the profession. And it's greatly appreciated. I absolutely appreciate it, the information's tonight. So this is, and I want to thank everyone for coming to tonight's event. Just want to remind everyone that to look for your email. You'll be getting an email from Kamwo to get your coupon. And if you don't receive it, you can always email us at events@kamwo.com. Okay, so we're going to start the Q&A session. This is where we start. So if you have any questions for Shelley, feel free to raise your hand and then we'll call on you and then you can unmute and then we'll get that started. Anyone have any questions? Ooh, okay. All right. Well, I have a question, Shelley. Can I ask my question? You had mentioned about the quality of the needles and availability. do you have a personal preference in terms of if the needles that you recommend are not available, what is the next best that people can use before they actually can get those needles? Because sometimes I know how, even for ourselves, we carry some of the needles and it's hard to keep them in stock because they, you know, they run out so quickly.
Yeah. So what do you, I mean, I trust what Kamwo provides. What needles do you like? So as long as it, for me, as long as it goes in smoothly, doesn't scratch or irritate the skin, and comes out smoothly as well. Is there, what are your favorite ones?
Well,
What's
obviously the
popular?
Syrians are always
Yeah.
the Syrians, because the Japanese style with the silicone coating, and it just goes in very smooth. There's also MAC needles. I don't know how. No, is it MAC?
Yeah,
I don't know
MAC
your feelings
needles.
about MAC too.
Yeah, they're not silicone coated, right?
Okay.
They're so I think a lot of people like those if they're using e-stim, or if they're actually trying to capture the fascia, you know, like you can put the needle in and you can turn it and you can cause the fascia to wrap around the needle. And so that can be intentional, particularly if you're trying to activate the piezoelectricity within the collagen within the connective tissue. So those are, the MAC needles are really good for that. I tend to do those on the body, use those needles on the body, and as much as I can use the Serins on the face.
All right, fantastic. Anybody have any questions before we wrap it up?
And if you haven't tried the Thrive needles, they're really, really,
They're wonderful. We cannot
yeah,
keep them in
you
stock.
can't keep them in stock. Yeah.
We cannot. And we just had a meeting with Amanda, so we're trying to get more in.
Good. Yeah. Amanda's
Every time it
great.
comes in, it just
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, she puts a lot into them. Yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, anyway, so thank you, Dr. Ghosteen, thank you, Shelley. And thank you everyone for coming, and we look forward to seeing you, all of you, next meetup. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks so much. Have a good evening.